there's something you can correspond with both.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Having a backup plan is really, really great advice. And I've been doing things online, and I'm sure all of us have, and we can understand that, you know, things happen. We in the comments or the chat, we received a lot of compliments. We have had people jump on and off, you know, as they go through their schedule. One person who had a question, which you covered a bit already, but you may want to reiterate. Okay. It says, what about selecting interview clothes that make you feel confident? Is it important? Is it okay to bring a professional notebook to the interview to jot down notes and questions as well?
Okay, so the first part of the question, I definitely encourage a person to dress in a way that makes them feel confident. At the same time, confident, but not necessarily comfortable. I think you should be comfortable in that everything fits well, but I don't think you should feel comfortable in that you're casually attired. And of course, anything that evokes confidence is a good thing, unless it goes against the professional attire standards. So, to that question, I would say yes to anything that makes you feel confident, as long as it doesn't distract from your presentation. The second part of it, I'm sorry, Terry, could you repeat that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is it okay to bring a professional notebook to an interview to jot down notes and questions and things?
I would definitely bring a notebook or something to write on. I think nowadays many of the applicants use their phones to take down information such for follow-up purposes or contact information, because sometimes you only have the contact information for one person, the primary person, or even the HR person who set up the interview, but not necessarily the persons who interviewed you. So again, in order to do those thank you notes, you'll want to get the contact information and have something on which to record it, which would be a notebook, or your phone would be appropriate. However, I would not be taking notes during the course of the interview too much, because you want to maintain eye contact. You want to stay engaged. You don't want to appear as if you're in a classroom, you know, taking notes. This is an interview, so you really want to be able to flow with the interviewer, and mainly, you know, maintain eye contact. So when it gets to the Q&A part, that might be the best time to take out and use that notebook or phone. But prior to the interview, I would definitely not be taking notes.
Okay, I see another really great question. What if you are asked a question you don't have an answer to?
That is a great question, because I think that, one, you want to start by being honest, and you can say, that's a great question. I hadn't thought about that, but you should attempt to respond to the question as opposed to blowing it off. Because if the question has been posed, it is an indicator that this is important to the interviewer and the employer. And so this is where your listening skills come in handy, because even though it may be a question you received that you were not prepared for and couldn't have prepared for, and that may have any number of responses that might be appropriate, you want to make an attempt to answer the question to the best of your abilities, and still be genuine in terms of responding. So, for example, I will tell you that when I interviewed with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia to work in a prosecutorial capacity, the U.S. Attorney, with whom I had the pleasure of interviewing with, asked me that, in light of the fact I revealed in my cover letter that I played tennis, he asked me what was my favorite position. Did I prefer to play the baseline or did I prefer to play the net? Now, I did not see how either was really relevant to being a litigator. But in his mind, apparently there was some relevance. And so I didn't know what type of answer he was looking for. So I answered honestly and let him know that I preferred to play the baseline and why. I felt that the panoramic view of the court from the baseline allowed me to make more strategic decisions than being close to the net. Also, the net you have to really be have great reflexes at the net, and I did not find that to be a strength at that time. And so I honestly walked away from that interview feeling that it wouldn't have mattered how I responded. He would have had something contrary to say, because when I said the baseline, he says, oh, well, we prefer net players because they're willing to take risk. I think if I had said, I like to play the net, he would have said something, oh, we prefer baseline players, and sometimes you have to go into these interviews knowing that sometimes the employer is going to push buttons and try to see what your emotional capacity is like as well, to see how you react under stress, to see how you handle challenges. And that's one of the reasons why you want to, however you react or respond, you don't want to get flustered. If you are flustered, keep it internal. One of those never let them see you sweat situations. And you want to respond with confidence. And you can respond with confidence when you're speaking your truth. And so in that instance, again, I spoke my truth regarding the baseline play and was able to offer what I thought was good transferable skills to the litigation mode that came from my ability to be able to play the baseline in tennis. So, and of course, I will tell you in court, whenever I faced a question I didn't have the answer to, I kindly told the judges, I don't have a response to that question at this time, but I'm willing to follow up with you after this argument, and I will send to your chambers a response as soon as I return to the office. So sometimes, and it worked. And so sometimes even a follow-up, I'll get back with you on that if it's not something pivotal or you absolutely just don't have a response. So you become savvy in navigating interview questions after a while, which is why even if it doesn't go well the first time, you learn from it and you do better.
Okay, I do not see any other questions in the chat.
Okay, I have a couple, Michelle, if you want.
Go right ahead, Terry.
You may have touched on this as well, but a question was asked about natural hair, Paula. Mm-hmm. What's appropriate or what would you recommend in regards to natural hair, and also scent and smell like cologne and perfume and things like that?
Okay, I'll start out with the perfume and cologne first of all. The preference, because we don't know who we're interviewing with and whether they have certain sensitivities, and there are disabilities that a person could possess that makes them allergic to certain scents. So for the interview, not wearing perfume, not wearing cologne would be the best approach. It's not like for this interview, that means you can never wear perfume or cologne ever again. That's not the objective here. But what you don't want to cause is if you end up interviewing with someone who has chemical sensitivities, you don't want the interview to become about their allergies or their sensitivities. You want it the focus to remain on you, your attributes, your credentials, and what you bring to the table and why you want the job and why they should hire you. So my recommendation would be no perfume, no cologne. Natural hair. I say that one second purposely because we know that it is a big deal in the workplace, has been. It's actually receiving more media attention as we speak, more legislative attention because of the Crown Act. With respect to natural hair, any hair, and all hair is natural. So it doesn't matter whether your tresses are straight, wavy, coiled, curly, kinky, whatever the case may be. With respect to natural hair, for women in particular, whether you're wearing your natural hair or a wig or extensions, you want to, again, for professional appearance, come in with your hair styled in a way that it is not a distraction, okay? So rainbow colored hair for an interview, not a good idea. Ronald McDonald red, probably not a good idea, especially if you know you're going into a conservative environment or a very non-diverse environment. Whether that non-diversity is because they don't hire young people or they don't hire a diversity of races or gender or ethnicities or religions. You want to come in and you want to be viewed for your merits and what you bring to the table, not your physical attributes or those you've added on to your appearance. So I always advise when I appeared in court, for example, which probably has one of the most conservative and stringent dress codes and professional appearance standards, I always, whether I was wearing braids or whether my hair was a natural or as it is now, or whether I had a wig on or extensions, I typically wore a style where my hair was pulled back or in a bun, in a ponytail, just where my face is showing, small earrings, and usually a pearl necklace. And so that the focus is on my face and what I am saying and not everything else. I can tell you that when I was clerking at DC Circuit, there was an attorney that came in, female attorney came in a red suit, and that ended up becoming more a part of the focus of her presentation, not where the judges actually verbalized it, but in the postmortem following the argument. That's all the judges talked about, was they were so distracted by this bright red suit that they really didn't hear what she had to say. And these are things that can, if you're in a legal profession, that can be a major detraction, because now you're in there, let's say, arguing for someone's liberty or life is at stake. You do not want your suit to become the focus. You want your argument to be the focus. And so in that regard, that's where colors come into play. Getting back to natural hair, having been the attorney who handled first as a legal consultant to the trial team and then took the case to the Court of Appeals in Alabama, trying to get the job offer of a applicant who wore dreadlocks and was told that her dreadlocks were neat and groomed, but because the employer just had a bottom line ban on locks as a hairstyle, withdrew her job offer. And the irony of the situation was that this lady young lady who had applied online for this job opportunity was accepted along with 100 other people to come for orientation, was then selected from that 100 to receive an interview, of which 30 of them received. And then ultimately, out of that 30, was of the 10 selected to actually get the job. Had spent all day with these people wearing the same hairstyle. And no one said to her, you are disqualified because of your hairstyle. In fact, even when the conversation arose, it only arose because the day of her tests that she had to get, physical tests that she had to get, conflicted with a appointments that she already had. So she had to go to the HR person and say, hey, look, you announced that if anybody had any conflicts to come let you know. And the HR official said, oh, sure, sure, sure. And they talked about the conflict. And as she's walking, and the conflict was corrected, and as she's walking away, the HR official says, are those dreadlocks? And the fact that she even asked meant she clearly wasn't, they weren't so, obvious. And the young lady said, yes. And she goes, oh, well, you're going to have to cut those off. And she's like, what? I cut them off? Why? And she said, well, they tend to get messy. Well, first of all, that's speculative because you don't know this lady. You don't know that her locks will get messy. But at any rate, she says, not that yours are, which then establishes her compliance with the employer's grooming policy, which called for neat, clean, and groomed, which apparently she met. And yet, still, the employer was, the HR person said she refused to cut her locks, withdrew her job offer. And yes, we brought, the EEOC brought the case as constituting race discrimination using natural hair as a race proxy associated with persons of African descent, policy disproportionately impacting African Americans, and considering it the refusal to allow a person to embrace their natural hair texture in a style that exhibited that natural hair texture as constituting race discrimination, no different than when in the 70s afros were banned. So we didn't win, but it ended up being a catalyst to the Crown Act and municipal regulations and statutes in various states, and potentially a federal law that Senator Cory Booker has put before Congress to ban this type of workplace policies as they relate to natural hair. So again, if in fact you're accustomed on your college campus of wearing your hair free, and you have a really almost I'm saying this like you all might know, the Silvers or Jackson 5 type size afros, Angela Davis size afros, you might want to pull it back or tailor it so that it doesn't become the point of distraction. No one's saying you have to cut your hair. No one's saying you have to straighten your hair. I'm not even saying you have to wear a wig. I want you to be you and what you're comfortable with and what you're confident with. If you decide not to do anything different, you just need to be aware that it may become a consideration. Some people are big enough that even once, they initially may be alarmed or reactive to the appearance, that once they start hearing your intelligence quotient during the interview, that they may not think anything more about your hair. But then there are others that once, that first impression becomes a lasting impression, it may also become a blockade. These are just things to keep in mind.
Great information. Thank you so much. We probably have time. Well, we got a little time for some more questions, and we have them. Another question, Paula, is what if I'm asked a question that makes me feel uncomfortable during my interview?
If you're asked a question that makes you feel uncomfortable, and I've definitely been there, please address the question the best you can and move on. If, for example, there's some questions that are just illegal, and but there are instances when I've decided I don't want the job, so I'll tell the person, that's an illegal question. You might want to refrain from asking that during an interview down the road. And because I already know, I don't want to work for this employer, so I'm just leaving them an educational piece. But if you still want to work for the employer, you can say, I'm uncomfortable with that question. Like if they're asking about marital status or how many children you have, whether you intend to get married, things of that nature are off limits.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question.
Um,
What?
Terry,
Yes.
it's 3:45 p.m. on my
Okay.
clock. I think that I have gone over.
Right.
Okay, I think we lost Terry. Paula,
Mhm.
we do have to pivot to another session, but we really appreciate, again, all of the wonderful and relevant pointers in terms of securing the job that you want by Miss Paula Bruner. We appreciate her taking time to really hone in on all the points that we need in her different capacities as a panel interviewer, decision maker, mentor. Hopefully you folks were taking notes. And again, we appreciate you coming on with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.